Well, it certainly concerns me. I mean, Booker T, you know why Booker T's brother had to come down there is because
The shocking truth about Mr. Perfect's tragic end left everyone in disbelief. His struggles with substance abuse had been talked about for years, but no one expected it to get so bad that it would cost him his life. Looking back, those issues were always in the background, affecting everything, from the infamous plane ride from hell to the many fallouts that disrupted his career. Let's rewind a bit and take a closer look at the series of events that led to the heartbreaking end of Mr. Perfect, Curt Hennig. One of the most talked about incidents in the final chapter of his career happened in 2002, right after a WWE European tour. On the chartered flight back to the US, Hennig was involved in what would later be known as one of wrestling's most infamous stories, the plane ride from hell. According to reports, the situation got out of hand fast. Hennig, apparently fueled by alcohol, decided to play a prank on Brock Lesnar, a rookie at the time, but already a powerhouse. He sprayed shaving cream on Lesnar, but the joke didn't land the way Hennig probably thought it would. Things turned physical quickly, and what started as locker room humor turned into a serious fight. It got so intense that the two reportedly ended up near the plane's emergency exit, which terrified other passengers. WWE officials weren't laughing either. The chaos on that flight led to Hennig's release from the company, and his career never quite recovered from that moment. But the drama didn't stop there. That flight seemed to open the door to even more personal and professional tension for Hennig. There were whispers of a falling out between him and his longtime friend and former AWA tag team partner, Scott Hall. The details are murky, but many believe the plane ride from hell, where both men were heavily involved and ultimately fired, played a big role in their strained relationship. Stevie Ray even mentioned that Hennig was deeply upset with Hall, accusing him of making disrespectful comments about Hennig's daughter. Whether or not those comments were ever confirmed, it clearly added fuel to the fire and pushed Hennig further into isolation. And then came the biggest blow of all, the one no one was ready for. In February 2003, Curt Hennig was found dead in a hotel room in Tampa, Florida. The cause? Acute cocaine intoxication. It was a gut punch to the wrestling world. But the tragedy didn't stop there. His father, wrestling legend Larry "The Axe" Hennig, spoke out and suggested that it wasn't just cocaine that played a role in Curt's death. Painkillers and steroids, common in a world where wrestlers constantly deal with injuries, might have also been factors. The pressure to perform, to keep pushing through the pain, had taken a toll on his body and mind. There had been signs too. Some wrestlers recalled seeing Hennig show up to matches clearly under the influence. One in particular, the Patriot, once said that Hennig introduced him to Percocet back in the early 90s when both were dealing with injuries. So when the Hillsborough County Medical Examiner officially listed the cause of death as acute cocaine intoxication, fans and friends were left with more questions than answers. It wasn't just about one bad decision or one rough night. It was the result of years of wear and tear, personal battles, and a lifestyle that took more than it ever gave back. For a man who once seemed truly perfect, Curt Hennig's story ended far from it, and that's what makes it all the more tragic. But what we can hold on to are the incredible memories he left behind throughout his career. So let's take it back to where it all started. Hennig's wrestling journey began on January 30th, 1980, in the American Wrestling Association, the same promotion where his father, Larry "The Axe" Hennig, had become a well-known name. Wrestling was in Curt's blood, and from the start, people saw he had something special. By 1981, he stepped into the World Wrestling Federation and grabbed his first win against Johnny Rodz. He quickly made a name for himself by holding his own against experienced wrestlers like Buddy Rose, Greg Valentine, and Killer Khan. He soon teamed up with another second-generation wrestler, Eddie Gilbert. The two were young, hungry, and ready to prove themselves. In 1982, Curt had a standout moment when he teamed with his father to win the Pacific Northwest Tag Team Championship. That win, over Rip Oliver and Matt Bourne, was more than just a title. It was a moment that connected generations. Curt continued his success by winning tag titles with Buddy Rose and Scott McGhee, and later captured the Pacific Northwest Heavyweight Championship after beating Sheikh Abdullah Ali Hassan. Although he lost that title to the Dynamite Kid a few months later, Curt was already becoming a standout. Throughout the early 80s, Curt traveled across various wrestling territories, from Japan to St. Louis to Memphis, gaining experience and sharpening his craft. By 1983, he was back in the AWA, and this time, he wasn't just the son of a legend. He was becoming a star in his own right. In 1986, Curt teamed up with Scott Hall and won the AWA World Tag Team Championship by defeating Jimmy Garvin and Steve Regal. It was clear Curt was climbing fast. Soon he shifted his focus to singles competition. His biggest moment in the AWA came in May 1987, when he beat Nick Bockwinkel to win the AWA World Heavyweight Championship. That win turned Curt into a top villain, especially since he got a little help from Larry Zbyszko. He aligned with Medusa Maselli and joined a new group called the Diamond Exchange, led by Diamond Dallas Page. Curt held the AWA World title for more than a year before losing it to Jerry Lawler in 1988. By then, like many AWA stars looking for a bigger stage, Curt moved back to the WWF. His return in 1988 brought a big change. This time, he was reintroduced as Mr. Perfect. Fans started seeing vignettes of him doing outrageous things flawlessly, bowling perfect games, throwing football passes to himself, sinking long basketball shots, and dominating in pool and golf. He acted like he could do it all, and to be honest, he made you believe it. His first match as Mr. Perfect was a win over Jim Brunzell, and from there, he kept winning. At Survivor Series in 1988, he teamed up with Andre the Giant and Rick Rude and survived the match. Throughout 1989, he stayed undefeated on TV, beating names like Koko B. Ware, Jimmy Snuka, and even Bret Hart. Late that year, he joined forces with The Genius, a manager who added more flair to his act. He started a rivalry with Hulk Hogan that grabbed headlines, especially when The Genius scored a surprise countout win over Hogan with Curt's help. They even stole Hogan's title belt and smashed it backstage. By early 1990, Hennig was facing Hogan regularly at live events. Though he didn't win the championship, he came close. At the Royal Rumble, he entered last and made it to the final two before Hogan tossed him out. That same year, his undefeated streak ended when the Ultimate Warrior pinned him at Madison Square Garden, and later Brutus Beefcake beat him at WrestleMania 6. Then on the May 5th episode of Superstars, Perfect beat Jimmy Snuka to advance, and 2 weeks later, he defeated Tito Santana in the finals to win the vacant title. With the gold around his waist, Perfect brought Bobby Heenan on as his manager. Heenan called himself the manager of champions, and now he had another. Perfect's first major defense came against Santana at Saturday night's main event that July, where he retained the belt. He was originally set to face Brutus Beefcake at SummerSlam, continuing a rivalry that started with a loss at WrestleMania 6. But Beefcake suffered a serious parasailing accident, so the Texas Tornado stepped in as the last-minute replacement. On the August 11th Superstars, Tornado laid down the challenge, and Perfect accepted a week later. At SummerSlam, Tornado shocked everyone by beating Perfect and taking the title. But Mr. Perfect wasn't done yet. At Survivor Series, he captained a team alongside Demolition to take on a powerhouse squad made up of Ultimate Warrior, Texas Tornado, and the Legion of Doom. Perfect's team lost, and a rematch against Tornado for the title on the November 24th MSG Network special also ended in defeat. However, redemption came quickly. On December 15th, with a little help from Ted DiBiase, Perfect regained the Intercontinental Championship on Superstars. From there, he held the title strong into 1991. He retained it at WrestleMania 7 against Big Boss Man, although it ended in a disqualification thanks to interference from Haku and the Barbarian. A few weeks later, he won a Battle Royal at Saturday night's main event, outlasting Greg Valentine. That led to a title match on Primetime Wrestling in May, where Perfect kept the belt via DQ once again. Then came a big change. Bobby Heenan stepped away from managing, introducing the Coach as Perfect's new mouthpiece. Around this time, Perfect began a feud with the British Bulldog, but behind the scenes, Hennig was battling a worsening back injury. By July, it had gotten so bad that he was pulled from house shows and had to change up his in-ring style. To avoid doing the Perfect Plex and risking further damage, he'd throw opponents out of the ring and win by countout. Despite the injury, Perfect was set to defend his title at SummerSlam 1991 against Bret Hitman Hart. It was a classic match, and also Hennig's last as an active competitor for a while. Hart won the match and the title, and Hennig's back issues, which included a broken tailbone and bulging discs, forced him to retire from in-ring action. Though he was sidelined, Perfect wasn't gone. He returned to WWF TV that November as Ric Flair's executive consultant, and also stepped into the role of color commentator alongside Vince McMahon. He wasn't just talking, though. He still played a hand in Flair's success, helping him win the WWF Championship twice in 1992. As 1992 wound down, Perfect and Flair found themselves in a heated rivalry with Randy Savage. A tag match at Survivor Series was booked, Flair and Razor Ramon versus Savage and the Ultimate Warrior. But Warrior was released from WWF just weeks before the show. On the November 16th Primetime Wrestling, Savage made a surprising offer. He wanted Perfect to be his new partner. At first, Hennig laughed it off, but after being belittled by Bobby Heenan and egged on by Savage, he snapped. Hennig dumped a pitcher of water on Heenan and accepted the offer, officially turning face for the first time in his WWF career. In the aftermath of Survivor Series 1992, Mr. Perfect's return to the WWF was nothing short of explosive. The fans rallied behind him, and his sudden face turn injected new life into his career. His once feared persona was now a fan favorite, and he teamed up with Randy Savage to take on the likes of Ric Flair and Razor Ramon. Their rivalry escalated quickly, with Perfect's personal animosity toward Flair growing stronger. Flair, ever the master of mind games, had taunted Perfect about his time away from the ring due to injury, and it was clear that Perfect would not let these insults slide. By Royal Rumble 1993, Mr. Perfect had evolved beyond his past as just another top-level competitor. His role in the company had become more integral, positioning him as a central figure in high-profile storylines. The Royal Rumble match that year saw him face Flair in a battle that perfectly encapsulated the animosity between the two. Despite Flair remaining one of the top heels in the company, it was clear that Perfect's return had struck a chord with fans who were eager to see the veteran back in action. His presence in the match was a reminder of the talent he still possessed and the legacy he had built. As the year progressed, Perfect found himself in the 1993 King of the Ring tournament. While he didn't capture the crown, his performance throughout the event left no doubt that he still had plenty to offer in the ring. Then in 1996, Hennig joined WCW and became part of the revolutionary NWO faction. His time in WCW allowed him to showcase his talents in a new light, contributing to the faction's success while solidifying his legacy as one of wrestling's most adaptable and enduring stars. That wraps up today's video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you again soon. Take care.